Hello everyone, my name is Zura and I'm the Codeholic. In this video, we're going to build full-stack applications with Laravel API and Vue.js frontend. We're going to have separate repositories. I actually have both of them right here. They are right now private repositories, but whenever I publish this video, they will be public repositories so that you can have a look at the code. But I made them private because I wanted to teach to you how you can deploy your private repositories using GitHub Actions and GitHub workflows on our shared hosting server. So this is the front end Vue.js side. We have ability to upload an image. I'm going to choose just one image here. We can optionally assign a label. Click on upload, the image got uploaded, and it's going to be displayed right here. This is the API. Both of them are deployed on the same server, and actually the server gives us possibility to deploy multiple websites on the same server, which is really convenient. Both of them are deployed on Hostinger's shared hosting. Here I have two websites, Vue Laravel API and API actually. This is Laravel application, this is Vue.js application, and you have possibility to deploy more than two websites, up to 100 by just clicking this add website, following the wizard. It is pretty straightforward, and I will show you everything. So while building this project, this is actually not very complicated project, but while building this project, we're going to learn a lot of things. So we're going to learn authentication process in Laravel API with the Vue.js frontend. We're going to also use pinia as a state management in Vue.js. We're going to store the user information inside pinia and then use that in navbar. We're going to implement the account creation process through Laravel API and Vue.js frontend, and we're going to do this whole thing in a session-based authentication. So Vue.js and the Laravel API will share these sessions. However, I'm going to teach to you also how to implement token-based, API token-based authentication with the Vue.js frontend and the Laravel API. So we're going to use Axios, which automatically sends these necessary cookies and XSRF header token to the server. So maybe I'm talking a little bit nonsense if you're a very beginner, but everything is explained in this video, and I hope you're going to learn a lot of things. I have been preparing this project for a few days after my working day generally, and today is a Saturday, full day basically. I'm working on this project, recording it, and I had a lot of challenges as well, which you're going to see everything in the video. So please, if you find this video helpful, just hit the like button and subscribe. That's all and the most important things for me, because I want to grow, and without your help it's simply not going to be possible. So if you enjoy my content, please hit the like button and subscribe. Before I move on and set up our project, I want to mention Hostinger, because Hostinger is my partner for the past few years. I have been using Hostinger even before we got the partners, and I really enjoy their services. And this video is actually sponsored by Hostinger. Hostinger is one of the toppest shared hosting, and not only shared hosting, but generally one of the toppest hosting platform out there. They provide shared hosting, VPS hosting, email hosting. I have used all their services, and they are simply excellent. Shared hosting is excellent for small to medium size of projects, and on a single shared hosting server you can host up to 100 websites. Right now they have an amazing 80% sale, and you can get the hosting for $2.49 per month if you actually grab it for a longer period. So right here you can find all the prices they have: premium hosting, business hosting, and you can read all their features, what is included. 100 websites, 100 gigs of storage. We have free domain included in the price. We have unlimited number of databases, unlimited free SSL for subdomains, and there are a lot more than this. So generally, I was very skeptical about shared hosting years ago, but since I started using Hostinger shared hosting, I'm actually loving it. So I have used VPS hosting also from Hostinger because sometimes I want more customization, sometimes I want a supervisor to be activated on the server, and so on. So all of them, both of them have their advantages. Shared hosting is the most affordable option, easy to start, and you have tons of options right there. You have Git support, you have SSH, you have the proper PHP, you can change the PHP versions, and there are a lot more than this. So whichever plan you decide to go with, let's say business hosting, click on this. So at this stage, you're going to choose the period. The biggest saving you're going to make if you choose the largest period of time, if you're committed and if you're sure that you need hosting for such period of time, you can go with that 48 months, or you can choose more smaller period like 12 months, 24 months, whatever it's going to be. And if you decide to grab the hosting, use a coupon code, the Codeholic, which will give you extra 10% off on already great price. So finally, 1 year hosting, which includes free domain and a lot of benefits. You can get it for as low as $43 USD. And that's a business hosting. Premium hosting is even more affordable, and it has even lower price. Go to the website hostinger.com/thecodeholic and use a coupon code thecodeholic to get extra 10% off. And thank you, Hostinger, for sponsoring this video. Let's start building this project, and I'm going to build this project in a slightly different way compared to how I have built in the past. So you're going to see my face always at the bottom right corner of the screen. So that's, I think, gives you a better feeling of how I come across to some challenges, what are my face expressions, and so on. So basically, I took a challenge, and I'm going to build this project from start to finish without pausing the recording or without any kind of interruption in this recording process. I do have prepared the project, however, but anyway, this doesn't change the fact that every time you build the same project, you might build it slightly differently, and every time you might come across to some challenges, because we don't always remember things by heart. We just solve it by understanding what is the problem and so on. So sometimes I just have to make sure that the recording is going on, it doesn't stop. So let's first talk about how we're going to set up the project. So my setup is Laravel Herd. I don't need anything else, and I need IDE. I use generally PHP Storm. I have a couple of links opened right here, and I'm going to show those links. I generally have Laravel documentation opened always when I work on the project, and I recommend you to have it opened as well, because sometimes we just need to have a look in the documentation, especially regarding API as an example. Okay, so first let's create the project, and this is how I'm going to do. I'm just going to create new folder on my desktop, and we can call this Laravel Vue full stack. Okay, so let's call it like this. I'm going to open this folder using PHP Storm, and I'm going to create two subfolders inside there. I think my dog is eating something. Sorry, I have to pause. Sorry, I had to pause. I heard something. So that's the spoon. My dog just started eating. Say hi. Okay, go away. You don't need this. Okay, so I created the folder. I opened this using PHP Storm. And now I'm going to create two folders. One is going to be for Vue.js, and second is going to be for Laravel. I'm just going to bring up the terminal right here inside PHP Storm, and let's generate these two folders. npm create vit at latest. I'm going to use the latest vit, but depending on when you are watching this, if you're watching this several years ago from now on, the vit latest might be different version, and you might have some challenges. So in this case, I recommend to overcome your challenges by yourself if you're watching this in the future, or you might want to just go back to previous vit version. Okay, so let's call this folder frontend. But this is going to be Vue.js. I'm going to call this frontend. Hit the enter. This is going to create Vue.js application. Now let me actually create a Laravel application while this is also being created. Laravel new, and let's call this backend. Hit the enter. Okay, for Breeze, for starter kit, I'm going to choose Breeze. Hit the enter, and we're going to choose API. I am not going to write tests, so I'm just going to go with PHP unit, because I think this is the one which comes with the default installation. And it doesn't have to, basically if I choose pest, it has to remove PHP unit and install the pest. Now this is how it works. Okay, so now Vite project is creating. It asks me which framework I want to choose. I'm going to go with Vue, hit the enter. Then I have to choose JavaScript here, hit the enter, and the project was created. Okay, so let's navigate into frontend. It is indexing because there are a bunch of new files inside PHP Storm, so PHP Storm has to index them. So frontend We navigate there. We have to execute npm install. This is the integrated terminal of PHP Storm, and it works slightly slow because of the indexing. Once the indexing is finished, then it's going to work like a charm. npm install. Okay, let's see how Laravel project is going on. Okay, it is creating. Awesome. Okay, so while this is being installed, I don't want to pause, so I'm going to talk about a few other things. Like we're going to install tailwind CSS in our project, and this is the documentation how we're going to install tailwind CSS inside Vue. So we have already created the Vue.js project. We're going to execute the following commands. So actually, I'm going to copy this. We're going to create the tailwind CSS config file, and also we're going to put the following content inside there so the tailwind CSS, which is into the following file, changes. And also we're going to create the environment file .en file inside our frontend folder. You can read more about this. That's why I just come up to all these links, so that if you want to know more about this, just check them inside the links. And I will put them in the video description as well. Okay, so we're going to access the environment variables through import meta.env. Okay, and not all the environment variables are available inside import meta.env. So here are all the things. We're going to create .en file. If you want to create different en files for different environment, for local different, for staging, for production, you can create in the following way. However, we are going to create one environment variable, which is going to be Vite API base URL or something like this. And any environment variable which starts with Vite underscore, they will be exposed inside import meta.env, but DB password will not be exposed inside import meta.env. And here's the example. So that's why we create en file, and we're gonna create one environment variable Vite underscore. Okay, let's see, npm install has been completed. Now we're going to install tailwind CSS, post CSS, and autoprefixer like it is recommended here. And we're going to create tailwind CSS configuration file as well, as soon as the installation of this goes. Let's see how Laravel installation is going on. Okay, it's created. It asks me which database I want to use. I'm going to go, yeah, it actually have chosen the default one, SQLite. Okay, so here we're going to execute the migrations. Yes. That was done. It is updating the composer.json because it has to install Laravel Breeze and configure it for the API. Okay, tailwind CSS has been also installed. I'm going to copy this command to create the tailwind CSS config file. And then we have to copy the following content to put that inside tailwind CSS config file. This is also in installation process. Frontend, here we go, tailwind config.js. And let's replace this. Let's format the code. Okay, that was nicely formatted. And now let's create .en file. We put this inside frontend, right? Yeah. Now let's create en file inside the frontend. I'm going to create .en example and Vite API base URL. And this is going to be HTTP. This is going to be where our Laravel server is going to be up and running. So this is going to be localhost port 8000. Okay, now I'm going to duplicate this env example, create env, hit the enter, and we're going to put this here, and I'm going to open git ignore as well, and I'm going to ignore env, but I'm going to commit env example. And after I finish working on this project, I'm going to commit everything and put this on GitHub, because we're going to also learn how to deploy the project from private repositories into shared hosting. And believe me, hosting a shared hosting is actually really, really awesome. So just watch this. You're going to love it. You can host multiple websites on a single shared hosting. We're going to host 2 websites, one for frontend, second for API, but you can actually host up to 100 websites on a single shared hosting. That's perfect if you have multiple projects and you want to put them in your portfolio, and you want to also provide demo links for those projects, you can host up to 100 projects on a single shared hosting server. That's awesome. Now, so tailwind CSS has been configured. That's awesome. And the last step is to open this style CSS and put them right here. Then we can start the server. So let's go into source, open style CSS. I'm going to delete every CSS what we have right there and replace it with the following tailwind components. Okay, now we can start the front end using npm run dev. This is going to start the server on localhost port 5173. We can leave this on 5173, or we can actually change this into port 3000. And let me tell you why I'm actually mentioning even this part. Because by default, Laravel API whitelist, so-called whitelists, localhost port 3000 when using this session-based authentication inside API. So that's why if we change this into 3000, we actually don't need to do anything right there. Okay, or if we leave this on 5173, we have to make some adjustments right there. So I'm going to actually leave this on 5173 because we're going to learn more when we have to make some additional things inside Laravel API. So let's leave this. We can open this into, again, my dog is doing something. Okay, so we removed all the styling. So this is the default one. Click on this button, increase the counter. So Vue is working. Let's go into Laravel side. This has been also done. We can navigate into backend and we can execute, not npm, sorry, PHP artisan serve. We can execute composer run dev also, but this is not what I want because composer run dev, let me tell you also the downside of the composer run dev, which I personally had on Windows machine. Let's open composer.json. Here we have this. Sorry. So here we have this dev command, and using concurrently, it runs several commands: PHP artisan serve, PHP artisan queue listen, PHP artisan pale, and npm run dev. So in this case, we only need PHP artisan serve. We don't even need npm run dev because we don't have the front-end website and we don't need asset building in our backend folder in our API. And we also don't need pale and we don't need queue, but the downside actually of running composer run dev, like if they are all working perfectly, it's fine to execute composer run dev, but actually for 5 minutes, if the server doesn't receive, if the PHP artisan queue listen doesn't receive any kind of jobs, it kills itself and the entire composer run dev command was killed. At least this was the scenario in my case when I was running composer run dev and I didn't have any kind of queue jobs. So in every 5 minute composer run dev command was killed, was stopped, and I had to redo it every time. This is very annoying. I don't want this. Okay, so let's close this. We're going to start PHP artisan serve. We're going to have this backend server up and running. We can execute this, not execute, but we can access, we can access this in the browser. So this is our API. Awesome. Now, what do I have in my plan? What are we going to do next? Yeah, we're going to install a couple of dependencies. So we created the project. Now let me copy some of the dependencies and you have to type this by yourself. So let's go into frontend. I'm going to stop this and we're going to install the following dependencies. So we need headless UI/Vue. We need hero icons/Vue. We need Vue router version 4. We need pinia. And we need Axios. We're going to use pinia for state management as well. So we're going to hit the enter. While this is being installed, let me have a look what I should do next. So the next will be when all of them is installed, we can create the router and we're going to create a couple of pages and 2 different layouts. Let's execute npm run dev first because all of them were installed. Now let's go into frontend and actually let me make my full focus on the frontend right now. I'm going to create router.js and const rotor equals create. The auto-completion doesn't work because of the indexing. Well, as soon as the indexing is finished, then the auto-completion starts working. Create rotor, I think that's it, which should be imported. We are going to provide here history, and we're going to use create web history, this one. Cool. And we have to provide rows here. Rows. Let me define rows. Const rows equals an array, and we need a couple of rows. Let me define them. The path is going to be slash. The name is going to be, actually, I'm not going to provide name. Let me use component. So there are two different approaches to create layouts and use that layouts then inside some of the pages. And I'm going to show both cases. So first is to have nested rows. So in this case, I'm going to create, I'm going to assume there's already, or let me just create. I was actually planning to use default layout like this and then create it, but let's actually create that. So let's create default layout using composition API. And I'm going to copy and paste this default layout and call this guest layout. So we have two layouts. We don't need this hello world. We can remove this. Let's open up Vue and we can remove this hello world from here. And from here, we can simply use rotor view. And let's remove any kind of styles. Cool. Cool. Now, inside the default layout, I'm going to use again rotor view. Of course, I can use any additional markups, and I'm going to use in a moment, but right now I'm going to use this rotor view. If we go in the rotor, now we have this default layout used properly. We just need to import. We need to also import create rotor. Awesome. Let me slightly minimize the left side. Cool. We need to export default rotor. The recording is going on. Okay, cool. Export default rotor, and now we're going to define children. So we're going to define sub roles, and for children, I need path to be slash. This is going to be for home. Oh, that should be object. So path is going to be slash, name is going to be home, and the component is going to be home as well. Home component doesn't exist yet, but we're going to create that. I'm going to duplicate this. The second path for the authenticated layout should be images. That's going to be my images. Let's call this my images. And the component name is going to be also my images. And let's define other paths as well. So path is going to be slash login. Let's give it name login, and the component is going to be also login, and duplicate this. Path is going to be register, the name is going to be register, and the component is going to be register as well. Or I'm gonna call this sign up. Cool. Now let's create this sign up. Now let's create these 4 components. So I'm going to create actually pages here. So components are more kind of reusable components, and pages, this is my personal approach. So this is how I structure all components, Vue.js components that are inside the pages folder should be associated to some route. Okay, now let me create home as an example, and we can write home there. Now I'm going to duplicate home and call this my images. I'm going to duplicate this again and call login, and another one is going to be sign up. Now we spoke about 2 different approaches of having the layout. One approach is that we have this component here associated to a path, and we have sub roles, and inside the default layout we use this rotor view. The second approach actually is the following. let's go into components, guest layout, and right here I'm going to use slot instead of the router view. Now if we go into login, we are going to use guest layout in the following way, and right here inside this guest layout we can have any actual markup, login in this case, and I'm gonna copy these, go and sign up, and this is going to be sign up page. Now we have all 4 roles, so the home and images are in a different way, we have to import them. So home was imported, register actually, oh, what is this? Something strange was imported. Okay, so home is imported, my images, let's import it. Let's import login. Login again was imported from somewhere strange. We have to remove this. Now let's import login from the first one and import sign up, the first one. Now all 4 pages are imported successfully. We are exporting the router. Now let's open main.js, and after we create the app, let's use router. We have to, of course, import the router if that was not imported, but that was actually imported automatically by PHP Storm. Now let's open the browser right here and have a look. So we refresh the page. Inside app view, we have some sort of error. Yes, this is the error. Let's remove this. Okay, this is the home page. Now if we access images, I think we have changed the text. Excuse me again. So this is going to be my images. Save that. Now we see my images. If we access login, we see login. If we access register, we see not register, but sign up. We see sign up here as well. Okay, cool. I think we can add also additional route right here, which is going to be anything that is not matched. Something like this. We can either redirect to slash, or we can use a not found component. It depends on our use case. So in this case, if I try to, it gave us an error. Okay. Yeah, let's use this approach. And we can use a not found component. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to use a not found component. Let's move this down and like this. And let's create not found component inside pages. Not found. Okay, so at the moment I'm just going to write h1 page not found. And in terms of naming, I generally name using Pascal case not found. And let's import this not found. Cool. Now the sign up is there, but if we try to access register, we see page not found. Okay, what else do we have to do? Okay, I think we can start working on actual guest layout and authenticated layout. For this, let me close this URL, this one and this one. That's fine. We can close this one as well. I'm gonna go into a tailwind components, tailwind UI. That's it. So we want, let's go into component section, scroll down below and find, let's search for forms maybe. Yeah, form layouts, and we have the sign on and registration. I'm going to click on this, and actually there are many examples, but the first one is actually free, so we can actually get the code of the first one, but for others you have to pay to get the code. They are actually pretty awesome examples. I remember that previously this version was actually free. I'm going to click on code. Let's switch into Vue, and let's see, it gives us the entire template. So I'm going to copy this entire template and go inside. Let's open guest layout. Now let me delete this slot. I'm going to return it back in a different place. I'm going to paste this. Actually, I have now 2 templates. So I'm going to replace the entire template. That's good. Now this is the guest layout. Okay, this also requires to use the following classes. So let's open index.html inside the front end and add the following class here, and also hfull to add on body. Let's give it also bg gray. Let's give it bg gray 100, bg gray 50 or 100. Let's give it 100. Okay, I'm going to remove this comment now, and if I try to access right now login, now we see the following form. If I try to access sign up, we're going to see the exact same form because the exact same guest layout is used and we don't have any place for slot. Now this is what we are going to do. I'm going to put this image, actually part of the layout, this image, but this text is going to be part of the actual page content. So I'm going to move this h2 outside of this div, put this down here. Let me enable wrap so that you can easily read every CSS class. So if we go into editor, general appearances, soft wrap, we have to add right here .view extension. Okay, wrapping was activated, and this should be part of the actual page. So I'm going to cut this, use slot here, open login, and right here we're going to paste the following markup. Now if we save it, let's do something similar for sign up as well. But in this case, the text should be create new account. Now let's have a look. For sign up, we see create new account. For login, we see sign in to your account. Now, of course, we have to adjust this a little bit, add additional inputs. So let's go into sign up. We have this email address, and I'm going to reduce this space also between the elements. Let's go into sign up first because we are working on sign up. And I'm going to copy and paste this. The first should be name. So full name. Let's give, let's remove the type because the default one is going to be text. Let's find all the emails and change this into name. I'm going to remove the autocomplete. We can leave the required. We can leave all these classes like this. Let's save it. Now full name, email, password, and we don't need this forgot password for the sign up, so we can remove that. And we need repeat or password confirmation. So let's duplicate the password and wait. So this is the password field, and this is repeat password. Let's give it different ID, of course. Password confirmation. This is going to be ID. For autocomplete, we don't need anything. Required, yes, it can be required. It should be, it must be required. And yeah, for label, we need password confirmation as well. For the password itself, let's remove the autocomplete as well. Cool. Now this is our create new account form. Full name, email address, password, repeat password. We need to change the text from sign in into create an account. Oops, I did something weird. Okay. And not a member. Okay, this is relevant for login, but not for sign up. So maybe we can change this. Already have an account. Then login from here. And we have to redirect user into login page. So for this, we're going to use router link. We're going to provide 2 here. And we're going to provide the name of the route, which is login. Awesome. Now already have an account, log in from here, click on this, it opens the login page. Let's go back. Everything is good. Nice. Now let's work on the login form. What do we need to work on? Everything seems to be great. Not a member. Let's find this place. Not a member. Create an account. Instead of start 14-day trial, create an account. Let's change this into router link. And this is going to go into name sign up. Yeah, as for the forgot password, I'm not going to implement, but I'm going to leave this to you. So please implement the forgot password as well. The backend is there. The Laravel Breeze comes with the forgot password functionality as well. So the backend is there. You can actually implement this. But I'm just going to remove it. But I encourage you to first don't start implementing the password reset right now. Just follow with me, finish the project while watching this tutorial, and then come back and implement password reset. Okay, so we have this login and sign up UI ready. Let's work on the home page and also images page. For this, I'm going to use a different layout. If we search for layout, yeah, let's use this stacked layout. The first one, which is actually free. I'm going to go into code. We have also scripts here. So we're going to actually copy template and scripts, and we're going to open default layout. Okay, and replace template and scripts with the one which we copied. Okay, your content goes here. So this is the place where we need to use router view. Great. Now this is our layout. We have home, and then if we access images, we see my images here. That's perfect. However, we don't need such many menu items, so we need only upload, or we can call this home, and we need my images. Let's remove project, calendar, reports, all of them. Great. Now, in terms of href, we don't need href. We're going to use 2, and the route where the clicking on this link should go is going to be home for upload, and for my images, it's going to be my images. We can remove this current true and false. We're gonna match this inside the template. Great, we have upload in my images, and now we have to find the usage of this navigation and replace that part, not the user navigation. However, we're going to come back to this as well, but the navigation. So this disclosure button, the navigation is used in 2 places. One is for desktop and second is for mobile. So let's find the desktop version first. This is it. So here we have this key, item name. It has name. Great. So we're using item name as key. Instead of href, we're going to use 2. And we're going to use item 2, but instead of a, we're going to use router link, like this. And instead of item current, we are going to do slightly differently. We're going to use route.name. If that equals to item 2 name. So if route name equals item 2 name, then this is active. And right here, we're going to output the item name. Item current, again, let's move this on a new line. Area current. Let's use this following condition here as well. Okay, awesome. Now let's understand what is happening here. So this is the class binding. This class is always added, no matter what is the current route. But then let's move this down as well. Okay, now then this is added if it is the current route, this is added in else case. And if the route is current, then we are using and adding area current as well as an area attribute. Now, if we save this, this is for desktop, we have an error. No match for name, my images, and params. Item 2. Okay, is the problem right here? So let's actually replace this with true. Now this is the case where you're going to see how I overcome this challenge. Where is the problem? The problem might be inside this route name, which I'm going to remove here and here. I can actually have a look at my source code, which I actually created when I was preparing for this project, but I want to just show you the whole process. So now let's remove the entire classes and see where is the problem. Okay, it doesn't look like that the problem is here. The problem is somewhere else. Name my images. Okay, that's the problem. We don't need space. Route name with the name my images does not exist. This is the problem. Now the error is gone. Let's go into navigation. Oops. And undo everything. Okay, I think I did. Yeah. Okay, I undo everything. And let's find the navigation and remove the space because I undo it. Now let's refresh it. That looks good. Now my image is actually active. Click on upload. Now upload is active. Look at this. So we did this nicely. Now, if we see this on a smaller screen, we see a different links right here. That's why we have to find now second use case of navigation, which uses this disclosure button. I'm going to actually replace this with a router link here as well. And as a, we can remove instead of href, we need 2. We're going to use item 2. And instead of item current, we're going to again use route name equals item 2 name. Okay, let's move this down. If this is true, then this should be the class, else this should be the class. And here's the comma, and this class will always be added. Let's copy this and put this right here. So take your time to properly analyze this change, what we just made, if you didn't analyze it immediately. Okay, so let's format this nicely. Great. Now we see my image is active. Click on this. Now this is active. I'm going to find this notification bell icon as well and remove it because we don't need. This is the entire button with screen reader only text as well. So this is the button. I'm going to remove this button that was removed on mobile, but it still is available on desktop. So we have to find the second use case of bell icon and the button and remove that. Now, if we scroll down below, we're going to see bell icon imported. We're going to remove that. No need for this. And we have this your profile settings and sign out. This is also I am going to remove. We don't need user navigation right here. So actually what I'm going to do is just have a sign out, but not like this. So I'm going to remove the entire user navigation variable, then find where user navigation is used. And instead of v4, instead of key or anything like this, here we have this a, which can be actually replaced with, it can be a, I think, as well, but let's replace this with button. Click on click. We're going to call a function called logout. We're going to create that function. In terms of whether this is active or not, it is not going to be active. So I'm going to remove this active and any CSS class which is added if it is active. So remove this like this. Cool. And instead of item name, we just need sign out. Actually, we need to remove the curly braces as well because we just need text. The only thing we have to create is this logout function. Let's remove this slot as well. Now let's scroll down below and create function logout. At the moment, we're just going to write logout. Now let's find another example where this user navigation is used. We did this for mobile, I believe, or maybe desktop, but we have to do this for desktop as well, or for mobile. Second one. So let's remove this v4. We're going to remove this key as, and we're going to add click logout. And here we need sign out. Save that. Now we see the sign out, click on this, simply prints logout. And on mobile as well, click on this, simply prints logout. Of course, the user information is actually different. The recording is working. 40 minutes already passed. Okay, so what do I have next in my list? So we created a layout. We actually can focus on the upload and can focus on the my images as well. Let me find the form section here. Oops. That's it, maybe. Scroll down below, and I'm going to use the following component for upload, and we need a label as well. So let's find cover. This is it. Let me copy the following div and go on home page. Okay, let's put this here. Photo icon. Photo icon needs to be actually imported. It is imported from, wait. It is imported from the following hero icons Vue 24 solid and chevron down icon as well, which we probably don't need, but let's use both. Script is right here. So we use photo icon, but nothing else. Let's save it and have a look. Okay, instead of cover photo, we need to just call this image. And we need second element, second input, which should be a simple text input. Like we can take the first name as an example. So let's search for first name. This is it. I'm going to copy that and paste this below. However, I'm going to adjust these classes. So let's give it just margin bottom 4, and this one also margin bottom 4. Instead of first name, we're going to give it label. So we upload an image, we give it label, and we submit this on the server. Let's replace this first name into label, input type text, name label, ID label, autocomplete. We can remove this autocomplete completely. Autocomplete completely. Okay, and we need the button, right? So let's search for button here. Let's choose this button, or we can take the login button as well, what we already have in our project, like this one. But let me actually paste whatever I already copied from here. Let's put this here. Not save, but upload maybe. Okay, nice. So we upload an image. Let's click on this. It triggers the file picker. Nice. We give it label. We click upload. You know, that should not be called dashboard. Let's remove anything that is not used. This is home. Why do we have dashboard here? Let's go into default layout and we have dashboard here, which is actually part of the default layout. So if we go into my images, we still see dashboard right here. So this is what we need to change. I'm going to take out this router view from here and put this here, and actually the header should be part of the page and the main as well. So I'm going to cut this, go into home, paste, let's create some space, paste this header in the main here, and then my inputs and button will go inside this main div. Now remove extra lines, format everything, and instead of dashboard, this should be upload. Let's move this text on its own line. Let's go into upload. Now we see upload right here. Inside my images, we don't see anything, which we are going to work on. I'm going to copy this header and main, go into my images, replace this everything. Inside header, we need my images. And inside main, we don't need these inputs or button. We just need the HTML template for each image, which I'm going to actually copy from my existing project, okay, which I already developed, and give it to you. You can get this from the repository as well. Where do I have this? My images. Okay, that should be it. Let's put this here. Let's see. So this one iterates over images, but we don't have any kind of images at the moment. Image has ID and URL and label. This is what I am going to do. Let's remove any kind of buttons at the moment. We're going to come back to this. We just define array of images. I think closing div also is missing. Now, perfect. Now let's remove the photo icon, and let's define const images equals an array, and let's define only one image, ID equals 1. Let's give it label equals to test, and let's give it URL equals to something. It's going to be broken image, but anyway. Now let's see an example. This is it. So this is a broken image anyway, not a big deal. If we duplicate these images a couple of times, but with different ID, of course, then we are going to see 3 images. All of them is broken, but that's not a big deal. So this is the entire layout. So we have upload section from which we're going to upload the image. We have my images section. We're going to iterate and render images. We have, of course, sign out doesn't work at the moment. We have login, and we have sign up. Perfect. Now, what do I have in my plan? Okay, now I'm going to create Axios client. Yeah, we need to create Axios client because we're going to use Axios to actually send the requests, to create new account, to log in, or to fetch some data. Let's go into, I'm going to close everything, reopen it if I need. So inside source, I'm going to create new file, Axios.js, and actually I'm going to create Axios client. So const Axios client equals, we're going to use Axios, which actually should be imported. We're going to import that. Axios.create, and we're going to provide configuration object. So we need base URL, and that base URL should be import.meta.env.vite. What did we call this? Vite API base URL. That should be it. Okay. This is the base URL. Great. We have the Axios client created. Now let's export default Axios client. Let's import the Axios. This is also great. And let's now add interceptors into the Axios. Before any request is made into the server, we have to we have to send the proper information. Actually, I'm thinking right now that the interceptor is actually okay. I have a feeling that my voice is not great, so I have to stop the recording and check the audio quality, because in the past I had these cases very many times that my audio was terrible. So I have to check it. Maybe it is ADHD, maybe it is something else, but I had these thoughts that the audio was actually not so good. So it was fine. So there are two ways, basically, and I mentioned this, to implement the authentication in the API in Laravel. So one is session-based authentication, and second is API key-based or the token-based, the same as the token-based authentication. So if we are going to implement token-based authentication, then we have to add right here interceptor, and interceptors are done in the following way. On the Axios client we just created, inside interceptors for request, we're going to use the config, and we're going to add some header. So this config contains some information, like inside config.headers, we can put, for example, authorization header, and send the bearer token, which can be saved inside the local storage, session storage, or inside the pinia store. So you get this token and send this inside the authorization header, which basically is sent before every request. Okay. But because we're going to implement session-based authentication, Axios sends the necessary information automatically if we provide two flags. One is with credentials true, and second is with XSRF token also true. So if we provide these two flags, actually XSRF token sends the header and with credentials sends the cookie. Okay, so if we provide these two, then the authentication happens and we don't need this interceptor. That is necessary if we are doing the token-based API key-based authentication. Fine, I'm going to leave this right here just as a reference inside this project. I'm going to add a response interceptor as well. So Axios client interceptors dot response use, and we have to check few things. So if the response returns with success, then we simply return it. But if we got some sort of error from backend, then we have to do few checks. So I'm going to check what is the status code of this response. So if error response exists and the error response status is 401, then we are going to redirect user into somewhere else. And for this, I'm going to use router push, and let's provide a route by name. Name equals login. So if we try to make the request, but the server returned 401, it means that the user is not authenticated and we are returning the user somewhere else. Somewhere else is login. Make sure that the router is imported by your IDE. If you're using VS Code, just make sure it is imported properly. And after we actually redirected user somewhere else, then we should throw the error. The same error what we received as an argument right here. So now we have this Axios client created, and I think we can send the request to create new account. For this, let's go into sign up, and we have to create the form data. So const data equals ref, and we have to provide a few fields right here. We need name, empty, we need email, we need password, and we need password confirmation. Now let's import this ref, and let's now find the inputs and add vmodel data name. Now let's take this out, and The model is data email. For password, it's data password. And for password confirmation, it's data password confirmation. Now we have this button and we have the form. Let's find the opening tag of the form, and we're going to listen to submit, and we're going to also call prevent. Let's call the function called submit. We can remove the action, we can remove the method, we don't need them. And let's define the submit function. Function submit, and using Axios client, we are going to send post request on sign up. I think the method, the URL is called sign up. To make sure that we're sending the correct, we are using the correct URL, let's go into backend, roots, let's open web.php. Here we have only one root, but inside auth we have register, login, and a couple of others. We're going to use register, not sign up. Register. Okay, now let's see what happens when we actually try to sign up. Let's open the browser. Let's provide the full name, zura@example.com. Let's provide password, very secure one. Create an account. Okay, we have an error. Converting circular structure to JSON, blah, 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 blah. The request wasn't actually made. Now let's see what is the data. Now let's print the entire data. Okay, name, email, password, and password confirmation. Okay, good. Now let's provide zura@example.com. Provide some password and password confirmation. Okay. The data seems to be correct. The problem should be inside how we send the requests. The problem is inside Axios. Axios client, post, this is the URL. Do we have the backend ready? I think we do have the backend ready. Let me check if I'm missing something inside Axios client. No, everything seems to be correct. Now let me check the sign up. So I don't see any issues, to be honest. I don't see any issues. Okay, we have to debug this, of course. I know the reason. So we are not going to use data. We're going to use data to value. Stupid. I feel stupid now. Because we created ref, and that ref has actual value. Let's use now. Hit the enter. Now this problem is something else. This problem is course problem. The point is that the request went to the backend, but backend returned with course problem, and this is actually pretty awesome. Why? Because I know how to fix that, and I'm going to also teach you. So if we go into backend env, so inside the frontend URL we have this localhost port 3000. This is what I mentioned. So but we're going to change this. Our frontend is localhost port 51373. I think this is it, right? Yeah. Now let's try to create an account again. Now that actually worked. That worked, and two requests was made. One is the options. This is just to check the CSRF, which returned with successful response. But the registration, actual registration, was failed because of the CSRF token mismatch. Now we're going to check what headers are sent right here. If we check the headers, not the response, but the request headers, we're going to see that no CSRF related information is actually sent right here. And that's because we are missing one thing. And now let's go into Laravel documentation, because I want to show this from Laravel documentation. I can't cover everything by heart, so it's better to give you the place where you can find out the additional information. Now I'm going to search for synctam, Laravel synctam, and I'm going to search for CSRF inside the synctam place. SPA authentication. This is a place. I'm not going to read all of them, but we have to do some configuration. Okay, so this is also one thing we're probably missing, but I'm going to skip this. I'm not sure if this is actually required or not to add a stateful API, but this is course and cookies. And we have to publish the course, which is already published. So if we go into config and course, we are going to see that the path is actually everything, a method is everything. The allowed origin is the frontend URL, and the frontend URL is actually our localhost port, whatever, 5173. So the allowed origin is correct. So we actually have course passed. That's why we don't have course issue anymore. So the options returned with success. We have a different problem, which is related into CSRF. And for this is also done. We did that. This is something else we actually have to do. But before that, this is the part we're missing. So to authenticate your SPA's login page should first make a request to synctam CSRF cookie endpoint to initialize CSRF protection for application. What this actually does is that you can read this, but I'm going to tell you. What this actually does is that it's going to put the information inside application cookies. Okay, and then the next request will pass that information. The Axios will pass that information on the next request. So what we need to do is take out this part, go into sign up, and wrap this Axios client post with this. Okay, so here we need to do something like this, and let me actually use Axios client here as well. So we first make the request into synctam CSRF/cookie, which puts some information into the cookie, and we have to observe this. We have to go into application. I'm going to move this on the left side. Okay, click on cookies. Let's delete everything. And now let's have a look. So we provide some information. Actually, I think, yeah, this is required. We can submit the empty form. So let's quickly fill up this example.com and password, and click on this create an account. Now look at this. So 2 cookie values were entered, were saved. One is XSRF token and second is a Laravel session. Both of them is different. Now if we check the network, we are going to see that the first CSRF token, CSRF cookie request was made on synctam, which returned successfully. And in the response headers, we have this set cookie right here. Okay. And then the register with options was made, and then the register post was made, and it returned with no content, which means that the registration completed successfully. Now we're going to check the database to make sure if there's a new user. For this, I allow PHP storm. Go into database SQLite, double click on this. If you're using VS Code or something else, you have to find the place to open the SQLite file. There's a DB browser for this. By the way, let me take a moment and plug in my course, because I really genuinely think that my course is one of the best, if not the best Laravel course out there. You can check it on my website. The code coachholic.com. It is 24 hours course. It is very, very well structured. I have been working on this about 6 months, 24 hours of content, 300 polished videos, written lessons. You have also access to private Discord group, lifetime access. I really encourage you to have a look at the course curriculum, because course curriculum, in my opinion, is really well structured. And yeah, I think I should stop talking about this. I genuinely feel that if you are into Laravel, this course will help you, even if you are not beginner, even if you have some experience. Just have a look, check the curriculum, what you are going to learn right here. And at the end of the course, you're going to also learn how to deploy the project on a VPS server with automatic deployment. There are 3 hours dedicated section for testing, and yeah, just check it by yourself. Okay. Okay, so we have opened this database. Why I remembered my course, because I'm actually using DB browser for SQLite in my course to open the SQLite file as well. So I'm actually showing you both cases. I'm actually using PHP Storm in my course, but showing you how you can use also DB browser to open the SQLites. It's not a big deal. You can, of course, find out how to open SQLite files using DB browser without taking my course. Just don't take my course because I teach you how to use DB browser. Take my course if you are really into Laravel and want to start learning how to build full stack applications, full applications from start to finish. The project demo is also really, really good. Just check this 2-minute video. Or check the free content, because first two, oh, sorry, I know I'm talking about too much on this, but first check these free modules. So you can check, there are, I think, 5 modules free, all of them preview is free. You can check it, you can see it by yourself, and then you can decide whether you're going to enroll on the full version or not. Okay, stop talking about this. And now let's go into users table and have a look. Now we have 1 user, and that's what we just created. Okay, zuraitexample.com, the password. And we are not going to implement email verification right now, and user has email verified at actually to be null. But you can try to implement this by yourself. The recording is working. Awesome. Okay, so we have created the user. Now what we should do, so because we created the user and the token is actually written, I think we are authenticated. Let's go into login and implement login as well, and then we're going to test the sign up again. In this case, I'm going to use my email. I have too many files open, so I'm going to close everything. We can leave the sign up, and we can also, we can also open login. Okay. So here's the form. Listen on submit.prevent submit. We can remove the action and method. Function submit. We're going to use something similar. So I'm going to copy this, paste here. We're going to make request on login. We're going to use, I have blood on my lip. Cost data, ref. Okay, so then we have email and we have password. Awesome. So we have to add, I love these attributes on its own line. It's more readable. So vmodel data email. Let me copy this. Vmodel data password. Awesome. Now let's try to authenticate using zuraitexample.com with a password. Click on sign in. Okay, a lot of strange things happen. Look at this. So first, CSRF cookie request was made. It was options request was made, then the actual CSRF cookie request was made, login for CSRF, actual login, which returned with redirect. It means that this was actually successfully completed, in which case we have to redirect user into home page. So let's put the then right here. If that happens, we're going to use router and push name equals home. So we are redirecting user into home page. Make sure router is imported. Now let's try this once again. zura@example.com. Enter some password. Now look at this. So we are redirected into the home page. Of course, we don't have any kind of protection right now. Anyone can access the home page. Even the guest user can access the home page, but we're going to actually take care of this. Now, let me open auth.php from backend, and we have logout here as well. So we have to implement logout as well. Let's go into default layout, find the logout, and we're going to use Axios client post on /logout. When this happens, when this is completed successfully, then on router we're going to push name, not home, but login. Let's import the router. This is so awesome. Now let's click on sign out. Okay, we have some error. Let's see. Now let's refresh the page. Yeah, okay, fine. So we are actually successfully redirected into the login page. Okay, great. Now we are still able to access the home page because we don't have that type of restriction on the home page, and this is how we are going to actually do it. I want to just copy and paste the part on the router. Okay. Now let's open router, and right here on this default layout. So we know now that we have the default layout, and any children that is meant to be for the default layout should be a child root of this default layout. So right here, I'm going to add the following before enter. So we don't have any kind of store, right? Yeah, no, sorry. Okay, let's everyone pretend that we haven't seen this. First, I have to create the pinia store. So we have installed the pinia, and for more information, again, we have to check pinia docs. Okay, how to create the store or anything like this. I'm going to actually try to remember a few things, although it is pretty basic. So we have to define the store. We have to create pinia and then define the store. So now first, let's go into main.js and let's create pinia equals create pinia. I think we don't need anything. Create pinia was imported. In a similar way, we are using router. We're going to use pinia. Nice. Now let's create inside the frontend source. We can create a one file, single file, store file, or to make this more scalable, we can create a store here folder, and inside store folder, we can create user.js as an example. Okay, so here then we're going to create the user store, and let me actually I think, yeah, it's pretty basic. I wanted to copy something, but it's pretty basic. So const user store, or actually it should be called use user store, because then we're gonna use that constant here. So use user store equals define store, and we have to provide the name, and we have to provide options of that store. Okay, so inside the user store, we need the user information. So we need to define, we have to define the state, and we have to define the actions. Let me open my store to quickly to just save a little bit of time. So we need state, which should be a function returning an object. So inside there we need the user, and let's assign it null to it. Okay, after this we need to define actions, and one of them should be fetch user. So we're going to fetch the user information. Okay, so how we're going to do this? We're going to use Axios client send get request on /user. /user root already exists inside api.php. Inside routes, backend routes API PHP. This is it. So this is the user route. And actually, let me change this into group, provide function, and then here we need root get user. Like this. So we have the group, we have the user returning the current user information. However, any route that is defined inside the API PHP right here has a prefix API. So whenever we're making requests from the user store, we're going to use API/user. Let's import the Axios client. So we're getting the user information. Inside then we have the user data, and we're going to assign that into this user equals data. However, let's print what is the entire data when we actually try to fetch the user. And you know what? We can also put additional actions here, like registering the user, logging the user. We can put that information here as well. So we can take out all these HTTP, the requests, Axios client usages inside the store. That's kind of an idea which I used to do in the past. And generally, if that type of logic, the requests and processing the data and things like that increases, we can put this inside the store. But the whole idea of the store is to preserve the data, right? So we fetch the user, we provide that right here, we print that, and now let's go back into the router and let's add these before enter. So whenever before the root is resolved, then the following logic will be executed. Okay, and we have to call next or next false to enable or disable accessing to that root. So we have to use the user store. So we have to const use user store. We are not actually exporting this. Export default use user store. Nice. Now we have to import this use user store. We have the user store. Then on that user store, we have the method fetch user, what we just defined. What fetch user is doing, it is actually making the request, getting the user information, and putting that inside the store. Once this is completed, so if for example fetching didn't happen and inside the Axios the request was made and the response returned with 401, then we are redirecting user into login page, right? However, if the response was successful, it was returned successfully, the user information will be provided here, and then I'm going to go into default layout, and right here we have this user, and that user I should replace with the user taken from the store. That let's actually use the store. Const user store equals use user store, right? So then I'm going to use computed here, and from user store we are going to get the user information. Great, now that user has that information. However, the only thing is that the user doesn't have image URL, and we are using image URL, which actually will be broken, okay, at the moment. Now let's have a look. We have some errors. Let's refresh the page. Now, if we try to access the home, we are actually redirected into login, and we do have an error, which I want to find out. That is the error. Cannot read properties of null reading image URL. So we're trying to access the default layout. I have a question, why default layout is even activated when, so we have this inside before enter. I might know the reason. So let's go into fetch user. Okay, let me explain this. So because this before enter and the fetch user, let's return this. We have to put a debugger here. I have to make this very, very clear. So we're trying to access the /root, which actually activates this before enter. So before entering on this path, right? So then we are using the user store, fine. We're making the request. Right now, we haven't made any requests, so I'm going to clear the network, go into sources and step over. Now, right now, the request should be made. Step over, the request was made. Let's have a look. The request returned with 401, in which case we should be redirected into the login page, right? Correct. So, however, this also happened, and next false was executed. So it cancels the navigation if data fetching fails. So let's actually proceed. Now we are redirected into the login page, and in the console, we see only the error which we should be seeing. And that error is coming from this console error. Perfect. Now let's refresh the page again, try to access the home page again, repeat the same process. That works perfectly. Probably something was cached, something was not working. So we don't need this right here because actually we are handling this inside the Axios. So this part is what is actually working at the moment. Great. Again, try to access home page. Let's remove the debugger as well. Try to access the home page. We are redirected into login. Now let's try to log in. Hit the enter. Okay, login returned with 422. That means the credentials do not match our records. Maybe I sent a different password. I'm not sure what password I set. Zuratic. Whoa, look at this. exampele.com. Anyway, however, we don't show proper error message when the message is returned. So this is what we are going to do. Let's go into login, and we're going to define errors, or we can define a single error message, or we can define a list of errors. Let me just define error message, which is going to be a single string. All right. So when we got error from the backend, we have this error response, but on the error message.value equals error response data message. That's actually correct. Now, if we try to use non-existing email and some password, hit the enter. Actually, I don't use this error message anywhere. So let's scroll down below. After signing into your account, let's create one div. Let's add the if error message, output the error message, and give it classes like padding x, padding y 2, padding x 3, rounded, text white, and bg red 400, something like this. Let's have a look. enter something. These credentials do not match our records. Let's give it also margin top 4. Margin top 4. Okay, nice. We have this margin top 10, which I want to replace this with margin top 4 as well. Okay, nice. Now let's enter the correct credentials. Zura@example.com. Enter the password, click on login, and nothing happens. Or let's have a look. So login completed successfully, but when we tried to get the user, it returned again unauthenticated. What's the problem? If we try to access right now, / it still doesn't work. It returns unauthenticated. Okay, there are a few things I think we need to do, and this is also mentioned in the documentation. So first we have to use the domain. So if we open session.php from the backend config and search for domain, we're going to find that it is taking the session domain. So let's open the backend env, find the session domain, and change this into the domain where session should be saved. And in this case, it should be, well, actually, this is more relevant on production, maybe. But I think we can have this localhost port 5173 here. No, I think this is relevant for production. So I actually didn't need this on developing this locally, but we do need this on production. Okay, so this is one thing, but there we're this. Let's use this middleware stateful API. Let's open app.php, backend bootstrap app.php. Oh, what's that? For some reason, my PHP storm thinks that I have PHP 5.6. If we open composer.json, we have here minimum version 8.2. So what's the problem? I don't know. So right here, we need to use this stateful API. Now, fingers crossed. Let's delete this. Zura@example.com. Click on login, and let's see what happens. Nothing good. Nothing good. So login complete successfully. Inside application cookies, we have this. When making requests to get the user information, it passes this XSRF token. It passes that cookie, but the backend still returns 401 unauthenticated. Okay, so I have to debug this. Why is it returning unauthenticated? I think the problem is not in. Now let me show this to you as well, my existing repository. So we have to find this out together. So inside the backend app, HTTP controllers, we have this authenticated session controller, which simply authenticates, session regenerate, and no content. Okay, that doesn't do anything special, and we have the same. Let's go into Bootstrap app PHP. Here, I don't even have this stateless, and that is actually working. Okay. One thing what I have done is inside config, sanctum, which I probably haven't done here. So here I have not added this host 5173. That should be the problem, but I have not done this 5173 because I changed the front end and started in port 3000. So if we check right now the front end, this is the front end. So I have two repositories, one for API, second for front end. In the package.json, no, I don't even have this. Okay, then what is the problem? With credentials, that's everything okay. That is done. Auth sanctum, that is also done. I want to check something. Let's remove the stateful API. Let's go into sanctum PHP. And we have these stateful domains. And I think we don't have the current domain inside stateful domains. But that one is the front-end URL. Let me actually add localhost port 5173 here. And maybe do we need to restart? No, we don't actually need to restart, but anyway, let's restart the backend. Let's restart the front end. Let's remove things from cookie and try to authenticate. Hit enter. Let's see what happens. Now, look at this. User request returned with successful response. However, we are not redirected into home. Why? Let's go into login. Login completed. Why we are not redirected into? If we try to access slash, so the user information is actually returned successfully. So we have the data here. We have the data, but we are not able to see anything. So what's the problem? Let's open app.vue. We have the router view. Let's open router. Debugger. Okay. Let's put the debugger before. Now the request is made, but then it goes into catch. It goes into catch because of something else. If we have a look in the error, cannot set property of undefined, setting user. That is the problem. Aha. Okay, now everything is fully clear. So this before enter makes the request. So this code comes here, the request is made, this is printed, but because right here we are using arrow function, we cannot use this inside the arrow function. That's my mistake. The Copilot auto-completed this as an arrow function. That's why I made this mistake. So we have to use either this user, but we should change this into a regular function, or what is the state here? Do we have actual access to the state? State is undefined. So I think we should simply change this into a regular function like this, in which case everything happens and this is associated to the state, and this user is this user. So if we save this, now look at this. That works like a charm. Perfect, perfect, great. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that we did everything correctly. So I'm gonna undo this change. So I just want to make sure that this is the exact change that solved the problem. So I'm gonna remove this, save it. Okay, so I'm gonna delete everything from cookies. Of course, if we refresh, we are redirected into login page, which is fine. Zura@example.com. Hit the enter. The code comes here. Click on this, and now we have this 401. And if you remember, when we started the first time the Vite application on 5173, I mentioned that we can change this into port 3000 and avoid some problems, or we can leave this on port 5173 and we have to add additional configurations, and this is going to teach us a new things, right? So by the way, I'm not sure why in my repository, I don't know where it is, why in my repository I didn't have this port 5173 added inside the sanctum. I'm not sure about this, but the fact is that maybe I had it, but I didn't commit it. I don't know. Anyway, so every time you create the same application second time, yeah, you are learning something new. So right now we don't have this localhost port 5173 here, and simply doesn't work because that's for the stateful domains, and our domain is not actually stateful. Even though we are using this frontend URL, that's strange what this actually does. So if I want to simply print this, what this actually does, dd here, and instead of the en frontend URL, actually we can leave this en frontend URL. So let me actually open this in a new tab. So this is just localhost. Even though that the frontend URL is localhost with some port, this just takes the localhost. So that is the problem. So we need right here localhost port 5173, or again, we have to change our Vite application and start it on a different domain. I'm going to leave this like this, okay? So now if we again try to delete the cookies, try to authenticate, we are immediately redirected into the home page, and this is great. Let's remove any kind of debugger. What we have? Do we have debugger anywhere? No, we don't have. Great. Now the image is broken right here. That's fine because we don't have an actual image. And let's let's take random user. I just want to take a dummy image. HTTPS random user dot me. Oh, come on. I wanted Copilot to autocomplete it. So let's copy image address. Nice. Nice. So we can display the user information as well next to it. A span class text white, margin left 3, and output user dot name. Perfect. Now click on sign out. We are redirected into login. Enter some details again. Where's this debugger coming from? It's a login page. Okay. Remove that. Okay, perfect. And now we need to, this image URL is broken on mobile as well. Let's take okay, now let's click on sign out, and I want to create a new account. Let's go into sign up. Okay, when the new account is created, we can immediately authenticate the user. Let's see what happens when the new account is created right now on the backend side. Controllers, auth, registered user controller, that store user is created, auth login. So the user gets immediately authenticated. So what we are doing right here, we can do on sign up. However, there's one difference. On sign up, we might want to show error messages, proper error messages. So we print error response dot data. Okay, and that might contain some errors. Let's remove this pre, and let's try to use an existing email, right? So we're going to get an error. We don't display this error at the moment. Network. Look at this, email has already been taken. So what we need to do is define errors equals ref, and we're going to have error for name. It should be an array, email, password, and password confirmation. Actually, for password confirmation, I think we don't need. And now if we check the error section after every input right here, let's create paragraph, give it class text red 500, and use errors name at 0. So this is for name. I think we are not going to have any kind of name, or yeah, name must be required, right? So let's remove this required here. Remove it here as well. Let the backend show this required message. Nice message. Now click on create new account. Okay. I think we don't populate the error messages right here. By the way, what is the error response data? It has errors right there. Perfect. So errors dot value equals error response data dot errors. Perfect. Create new account. Now look at this. The name field is required, and let's give it text small, and let's make it 600. Name field is required, and like this, In the same way, let's give it margin top 1. So in the same way, we can output errors for other fields, like this is for email, and this is for password. Of course, you can go even further and add additional CSS classes to this input element based on whether there is an error on password or not, but this is not something I want to do. So now let's fill this information. Zura@example.com. I'm going to use the same email. Hit the enter. Okay, now the backend returned only one error, but because we assign the entire errors to the errors value, so errors value only contained right there email. It didn't contain name or password at all. So what happened here, we were trying to access the first from the name, and the name was actually undefined. So I think we just need to check if errors name dot length, or if errors name exists at all, then we can take the first one. Otherwise, we are not going to take anything. And we have to do something similar for email. If errors dot email exists, then we take the first one. If not, we take empty thing. And let's do something for password as well. Okay, one last time. Zura@example.com. Let's provide the password. Create an account. Okay, email has already been taken. We don't have any more errors. Let's use Zura to create an account, and we were redirected into the home page. The account was created. Okay, so everything is perfect. Great. It's already 1 hour since I started recording after I actually paused. So we have almost 2 hours recorded, right? Okay, now I want to implement actually uploading the image. So I'm going to close everything, and we are going to go into backend folder. Navigate into backend and create new model and controller and migration. PHP artisan migrate, not the migrate, but make model image. We want migration as well. We want controller as well. And actually, let me just generate model and migration. First, create images table. So image needs path, which can be long, something like 2000. It should be required. And image needs label as well, which can be optional. So we can make this nullable. Awesome. Now let's execute the migration. PHP artisan migrate. Now let's open image model, image, and we're going to add fillable. Fillable for path and fillable for label. Now let's generate controller. PHP artisan make controller image controller. We can provide -- resource -- model equals image model. Let's hit the enter. Okay, now let's open image controller, and we have all these methods here. We don't want create, We don't want show, we don't want edit or update. We're just listing the images, creating new one, or deleting. So from here, we are going to return image all, and we are going to map. So when creating the API, you should generally create the resources, right? API resources. That's how you should do it. API resources also provide you pagination type of experience, yeah, it's actually the ideal one. But in this case, I'm just going to make it simple. If you want to find out more about API resources, you can find out in the Laravel official documentation. In this case, I'm just going to return all images, my images, but I'm just going to map them and return into the following format. I need ID, I need image URL, which should be actually storage URL, image URL, but that's going to return a relative URL. Let's import the storage facade, and I'm going to use URL function on that as well. And we need label, image label. I think we haven't created the storage link. So let's execute PHP artisan storage link. The link has been created. Awesome. Now let's implement the store. On request, we're going to validate. We're going to have image, which is going to be required, file, image, the following MIME types, and maximum size. I'm going to remove the maximum size here. And we need a label required. It should be nullable. After this, we are going to store the image. So on request, file image, we're going to store. Let me actually remove this. We don't care the image name. So we want to provide store. The path is going to be images and disk is going to be public. That returns the path. And then I'm going to create new image, create, provide path, and provide a label. This should be request label. Now, image is created and I have to return response with 201. Actually, that's the content. We can return the just created image, but we actually don't need just created image. We can return it, but we don't need 201. And let's implement destroy as well. On image, we're going to call delete. However, we need to check if the image is created by me. And for this, we need one extra column. You know what? I'm not going to overcomplicate this. So you can add one extra column right here. So this is not a kind of a super real world type of application. When I create real world type of applications, you know that I generally consider these type of things. But we're creating fake application. It is not fake, but you are not going to probably use this on real world, right? So we want to learn, connect Vue.js frontend into Laravel API, deploy this on production, both of the domains. Pretty interesting. So I don't care about this user ID. But if you're creating something real world, you should of course add a additional column right here, user ID column, and you should save who uploaded that image. And then when deleting the image, you should check if the authenticated user is the person who is trying to delete that image, right? So in this case, we're just going to delete, return with 204. And that's it. I think the backend is kind of ready. Let's go into api.php and we have to add this. So for this, we're going to use root API resource and we're going to provide image here and we're going to use image controller class. However, we actually don't need all of these actions. We need only store, we need only index, we need only store and destroy. Now, if we go inside my images, we have these images. So we're going to make now requests. So on mounted, we make request. So using Axios client get image that returns all the images. We have the response. Response data is going to be what we are interested in, I assume. And let's change this into ref. And images.value equals response data. Let's print the response data as well. Now let's have a look. Click on my images. Okay, we have 404 because we have to provide API as well. Now that returned empty thing because we don't have anything. That's fine. Let's go into upload and implement upload right now. And then it is going to return something. Not upload, but home. So we have this upload and we don't have form, right? We don't have form. So let's put everything inside form. We don't need action. We just need submit.prevent. Let's call submit method. Let's create this function submit. Now I want to create const data equals ref, and we need only label. We need only label. Let's import this. Let's find the second input and use it vmodel data.label. However, for input type file, which is this one, for input type file, we have to listen on change. So at change equals data, let's access the data and let's give it image as well, which is going to be null. So data image equals event target files at 0. Now when we perform the submit, we have to create form data. Because we're sending a file, we have to send the form data. So inside form data, we're going to append the data image. We're going to append the data label. Actually, we're going to append the data.value image and data.value label. Then on Axios client, we are going to send post request on /API/image, and we're going to provide the form data. If that completes successfully, we can redirect user into a route my images. Now let's import the router and test this. Okay, I'm going to choose an image. Let's go into pictures. Choose any of it and give it some test label. Clear the network, click on upload, check the network. Okay, upload doesn't do anything. Why? Form button is type submit. Okay, let's refresh the page. Upload image, click on upload. Okay, it worked. It worked. This is the created image, and this is what was returned. I made a mistake probably. Instead of image URL, we should have used image path. Refresh the page, and now we see this image path. Excellent. Now let's go into upload another image. My course. Click on upload. This is it. Let's actually sort this by order, or let's do like latest, and then call get, and then map. So latest is at the top. Upload another one. Logo. Okay, perfect. So I think we need two buttons. One button is going to be to copy the image URL, and second is going to delete the image. So let's go into my images. I have copied the markup. Before label, I'm going to paste these two buttons. So this is one button, and this is second one. So delete image, the second one calls delete image function, and this one calls copy image URL. Let's implement these two functions. Let's actually do these before on mounted. So function delete image that accepts the ID, and on Axios client we're going to call delete image ID, and when this happens, let's redirect router.push. Actually, we are on the same page. So the redirect is not necessary. What we need to do is images value equals images.value to filter out and take the image out which was just deleted. So images value equals filter all the images and remove the ID which was just deleted. But we can also optionally add a confirmation right here. So if not confirm, are you sure you want to delete this image, then return. Okay, so this is for delete image, and the next function is copy image URL. For this, we get the URL here, and we have to do the following. Call await. We're going to make this async. So await navigator clipboard write text URL. That's it. Of course, we have to apply some styles. Let's take this out and put this after this paragraph. Okay, now click on this copy image URL. It doesn't give us any feedback because we haven't done this, but the URL was copied and we opened that. Now copy this one, we open this. Copy this one, we opened it. Great, so I want to delete this. Click on delete, confirmation, cancel, doesn't do anything. Click OK. And what happened? Yeah, I know what happened. Where's delete image? API is missing. API, image, and then the ID. Refresh the page. Click on this. Okay, now it was removed. Refresh it. It stays removed. It is persistent. So that's a very, very simple application, although we need some time to implement this. But I think we are ready to deploy this application on our shared hosting. So for this, I'm going to use Hostinger's shared hosting, which I personally think is the best shared hosting out there. And years ago, I was very, very skeptical regarding shared hosting, but I right now think that if you want to deploy small to medium-sized projects, shared hosting is actually the best choice. Also, depending on what type of experience you want. If you want like supervisor, for example, if you want queue jobs running, if you want Laravel reverb or server-side rendering, then shared hosting is not the solution for you, because server-side rendering requires Node.js. Shared hosting doesn't support Node.js. In most cases, it doesn't support Node.js. Also, supervisor is not installed on this. Supervisor configuring supervisor requires root access, and you don't have root access on the shared hosting. But again, small to medium size of projects, depending on your use cases, shared hosting might be ideal for you. You can deploy the API right there. You can deploy the front end. You can deploy multiple APIs, up to 100 APIs in websites. Okay, great. So I think we can start working on the deployment, but I'm thinking if I'm missing something. So we learned the session-based authentication completely, but what about token-based authentication? So how we should do that? So they are very similar, but the significant difference is that in case of session-based authentication, so we make the request, this sanctum cookie request from login, which puts the correct cookies inside our browser, and then the next request works successfully, right? And also, if we open Axios.js right here, because we provided this with credentials and with XSRF token, true, Axios sends these headers automatically. Without this, basically, if I comment out this part, now you see we are actually authenticated, but we are redirected into the login page because that information was not sent. If we click on the headers, I have to drink. So no headers were sent regarding authentication. If we activate this back, go on the home page, now you see we are authenticated. So to replace this with the token-based authentication, we have to manage the token by ourselves. So how we're going to do this? If you go into backend HTTP controller authenticated session controller, this is for the authentication. And by the way, I prepared this project before recording, but this particular side, the token-based authentication, I haven't prepared. So let's do it together. So here, the authentication happens in the following way: authenticate, then session regenerate, and response no content. If we check the documentation, there should be token-based authentication. Like, it is very similar to mobile application authentication, to issue API tokens. This is what we want. Okay. So we can create separate endpoint to validate and return the token, or what we can do is call the following code. So instead of session regenerate after we implemented the authentication, so we can access the current user using auth user. Then we can call create token. We can provide something to the token, primary or something, and then we can return the token. So let's take this token. I just don't want to lose the session-based authentication. Maybe I will undo it. Okay, no problem. So this is the token. I talk too much. Okay, now I'm going to return the user information. So that's my user and that's my token. So let me comment out this part. We should actually return response and this type of array. Now let's try to implement authentication and see what happens. Let's provide user add Zura add example.com, provide correct. Now the login returns with an error, call to undefined method, create token. That's probably because we have to open user.php and we have to use the trait has API tokens. Now let's try this once again. Click on login. Now login returns with, let's have a look. Login still returns with 302. Why is that? Authenticated session. Okay, let's open auth.php. Login here, authenticated session controller store. Backend up. Okay, that's it. We got the user. Yeah, that should be correct. That should be correct. And also when we make the request, we don't need the CSRF token. So basically when we implement the token-based authentication, the CSRF doesn't make sense. Cookies are not shared. Imagine that we are building the mobile application. So in the same way, mobile application is the consumer of the API. In the same way, if we make our Vue.js application the consumer of the API, we don't actually need CSRF tokens at all. So we have completed the session-based authentication. Now let's try to implement the login-based token-based authentication. So in this case, we just make the login request. We are going to completely delete everything from the cookies. Okay, refresh it. We are on the login page. Awesome. We're going to open the Axios and remove these two as well. No need for that. So zura@example.com, hit the enter. CSRF token mismatch. Okay, in this case, if we are doing this API-based authentication, then we're going to have this problem, CSRF token mismatch, in which case we have to disable CSRF token for that specific API endpoint or endpoints. I'm not sure if there is mentioned that CSRF token disabling for mobile applications, but it is actually necessary. So this is our part. This one, mobile application. Okay. Yeah, I think there's not mentioned this CSRF token disable that is necessary. So what we need to do is go into app.php, and on the middleware, we're going to call validate CSRF tokens, and we're going to provide except an array. That array should be the API endpoints except which we want the CSRF token to be validated. So in our case, the entire application is API. Login, sign up, everything. Even though we don't actually have the API prefix for those rules, like whatever is inside auth, register, login, forgot password, reset password, whatever, all these things, they don't have API prefix. Okay, if we take all of them out and move them into API and define them right here, then they will have API prefix. Okay, so in this case, I'm just giving you an example how you can do the API-based, the token-based authentication, but I'm not going to actually finish this and convert this into API-based, the token-based authenticated project, so-called this. So let me just do an example. In this app PHP, so I'm going to validate CSRF token except login. Okay, so the login now does not require CSRF validation and anything that is under API. Now let's have a look. Click on sign in. That returned successfully. Look at this. So that the login returned successfully. We have the token and we have the user information. All right. So after this, we try to redirect user into the home page, and then inside the router, before enter, we made the request to get the user information. But because we don't have that information inside the session, Axios didn't pass anything. So this is what we need to activate in this case. So when we get the token right here on the response, so we have to save the token somewhere. So that somewhere might be the store of the Pinia store. Let's open user.js. We can save this into right here. We can save this into a local storage. Doesn't matter. So we have to save this somewhere, or session storage. So in this case, let me just take that login and right here save it in a local storage. Token response data token. So we have this token right now. And then inside the Axios from local storage, we're going to get the token and send it inside the authorization. Now let's have a look. Zora at example.com. Something was wrong. Error response data message. Response data token. Okay, there was some sort of error. Error. What is the error? Cannot read properties of undefined. Reading cancel token. What? What's the cancel token? Okay, let's put the debugger here. Zora at example.com. It doesn't come into response. The login does not return. Whoa, I don't return this config. That is the problem. Return config. Zora at example.com. Okay. Now we got the response data token. All right. So that is saved. That was saved in the local storage. And because it was saved in the local storage, then the user we are redirected into the dashboard in the home page, and then the request was made, and inside the headers, the authorization bearer token was passed. And just like this, we implemented now the authentication. That's a token-based authentication. So now the client, which is Vue.js, and the API doesn't share any kind of state, no session, no cookie. It's just a single token, bearer token, which the client sends to the server. Of course, in this case, as I mentioned, we have to make these changes, what I did so far, but these changes are not enough because on the backend side, we only disable CSR for login. We should disable this for other rules which are defined inside auth right here, or we can move all these rules into API PHP right here somewhere, depending on whether the root is for authenticated or not. So like this one is for guest, so it should be just directly moved right here. But the logout, as an example, requires authentication. So it should be actually part of this Sanctum middleware right here. So you get the idea. If you don't got the idea, just let me know in the comment section down below. But that's the whole story. Just like this, you're moving your session-based authentication into API token-based authentication. Okay, awesome. I'm going to undo the changes I made because we're going to have the final project with session-based authentication, and we have to deploy it as a session-based authenticated project. Let's go into login as well. I'm going to undo. Okay, that's fine. Let's go into Axios and undo this as well. Oops, like this. What else? Nothing here. We can remove this. Nothing has been changed here. Okay. I guess that's it. Now let's test this one last time. And then we're going to push this onto GitHub. Okay, that works. Getting the user sent those cookies. Where's that? Those cookies and XSRF tokens into the server. Sign out. I love testing it, over testing it. Okay, great. Just do one last test. Choose one car from my course. That's it. Okay. And now I have to actually stop the recording and prepare the repositories, and then we can deploy it. Okay, so now we'll start working on deploying our project. I have actually prepared two repositories. One is for the Laravel API, and second is for the frontend. Here are both. And deploying public repository is much easier, so I made them both private, so that you should know how to deploy your private repositories on your shared hosting server. So here I have my Hostinger hPanel, and here I have a couple of existing shared hosting servers, and I have domains as well. I use Hostinger for all my things. So if we scroll down below, if we click on the websites, and if we scroll down below, I have all my websites here, as I mentioned, and I have two business web hosting to set up. If you get the shared hosting, whether it's a business hosting or something else, like there are different tiers. So we have this premium hosting, business hosting, and cloud setup. It doesn't matter if it's a premium hosting or if it's a business hosting, the process is going to be the same. Just on business hosting, you're getting much more than on the premium hosting. You have 200 GB NVMe storage and so on. So you can check these things by yourself. I'm just going to show you how you can deploy your project, whether it's a premium hosting or business hosting, generally on a shared hosting on Hostinger. And I like Hostinger because it has all the tools I need to deploy my project successfully and without any kind of issues. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to click on one of these business web hosting, click on setup. I have to set this up. I'm going to create new website, click on this. Here I have two options, WordPress, or I'm going to use the Hostinger's Hostinger website builder. But I'm going to click on this empty PHP HTML website. And here I have to assign the domain. I can choose any of my existing domain, which I have available in my Hostinger, which I purchased with Hostinger. I can also use subdomains of any of my domain, but I want to show you how you can deploy a primary domain on your website. So I have one free domain available. So I'm gonna try to get one. Vue Laravel API.com, something like this. So I can get it for free for 1 year. I'm going to click on this. Because I am choosing a new domain, I have to fill some domain registration related information. If you're doing this very first time, I'm going to click on next. Now that's it. So yeah, here I have to confirm my details. I have entered the details in the past, but again, if you're purchasing the domain the very first time, you have to fill this information. It doesn't matter whether you're buying this on Hostinger or somewhere else, you have to fill that information, contact details. Click on finish registration. It is going to take a few seconds until that registration is actually completed. And meanwhile, I want to share actually my phone screen, and I want to talk about the deployment strategy, how we're going to actually do this. I'm going to choose the location to be Germany. It's close. It says like close to Europe and the USA as well. Click on next. It doesn't matter actually. So as you see, the setup has been completed. It is installing SSL on the following domain. And while this is doing the installation of SSL process, I'm going to add a second website right here. And this is going to be for API. I'm going to click on this create website, next, empty PHP HTML website. And here I have to choose API, which is going to be the subdomain of the primary domain we have just chosen, Vue-Laravel-API.com. Okay, so this is a free subdomain. I'm going to click on this, click on next. And now this is going to also do this initialization setup. Meanwhile, now let me share my phone screen and walk through the process. So here we have this Laravel API repository. So let's say that we have this API. This is a repository. We have another repository, which is the frontend Vue repository, right? So these are repos. Let me make this slightly thinner. Okay, so we have two repositories and we have our server right here. So this is our shared hosting server. And we also have GitHub runners. So whenever we push something on our repository, we want the automatic deployment to be kicked off and we want the code to be deployed on the following server. So let's say whenever we push something, I'm going to move these two things in the center like this. So whenever we push something on the API, and it's going to do the same thing for frontend, doesn't matter. So whenever we push something on the API, it is going to spin up the runner. So a new runner server will start working. That runner server will go through the steps, what we define. So it will execute the composer install, it will run migrations. The purpose of this runner server is that make sure that the project is working. So we execute composer install, make sure the composer install works, make sure the migrate command works, and optionally, if we have tests, we can put also some additional tests inside this runner commands. As soon as runner finishes the work, then runner connects to our hostinger server and pushes that information. The runner can directly push that information to the server from the runner server into the hostinger server. Let's call this H server so that it's a hostinger server. Or runner can simply give commands to the hostinger server so that hostinger server can go to our GitHub repository, execute a pull command, and then get the latest version of the repository and then execute some additional commands on the server itself. That additional commands might be like migrate, execute the tests, and so on. So again, just to quickly go through this, you push something on the repository that triggers the runner. Runner executes certain commands. Once it is completed, if the runner was failed for some reason, then the deployment will not happen. If the runner completes everything, then it gives commands to the hostinger server what to do, and according to these commands, hostinger server connects to our GitHub repository, gets the information, pulls the latest version, and then executes certain commands on the server. Okay, that's it. The same thing, similar thing happens on the Vue.js. However, it will have a small difference. Okay, so when you push something on the Vue.js, okay, again, it is gonna spin up the runner. So let's say this is runner, just R runner. Okay, so runner again will execute the commands. Now everything what similar to what we described on the left side right here. Okay, so and then runner gives instructions to the same hosting server. So it's the same hosting server, but there will be a different location, right? Different folder where that Vue.js application should be deployed. So that runner gives the instruction to that hosting server. And in this case, the hosting server does not clone the Vue.js application. So that communication from the server to the Vue.js repository does not happen. And this does not happen because we don't have Node.js on our shared hosting server. And if we clone the Vue.js repository, we cannot execute npm run build or something like this because we don't have Node.js. In a similar way, on the left side, if we are deploying a typical Laravel website application on the left side right here, and which actually requires npm install and npm run dev, you cannot execute this npm run build and npm run dev on this hosting server. Instead, you should execute this npm run build and npm run dev on this runner right here, which actually supports Node.js, and whatever is built, that like the build assets, whatever is generated by npm run build, which typically creates a build folder inside the public folder, then that build should be transferred into our hosting server. But again, we're deploying the API. We don't need to execute npm run build right here. Just I'm mentioning if you have to deploy a typical website on a shared hosting, this is how you would do. So on the right side, then whenever this runner does all the steps, step 1, step 2, step 3, it's going to build the Vue.js application, and then it is going to transfer the built Vue.js files into the server, okay, into the folder, proper folder where that Vue.js application should live. Okay, so that's the entire flow. And now let's actually implement this. And in order also, for example, the runner to be able to connect to hosting server, runner needs access to the hosting server, which is what we are going to do. Also, the hosting server to connect to our private repository, that hosting server also needs access to our repository. And these things are what we are going to do. Okay, now let's see the setup status. It was probably completed. We click on this API, Vue Laravel API.com. This is going to be our API, and we have a second website, which is Vue Laravel API.com. This is going to be our frontend. So here we're going to deploy Vue.js, and here we are going to deploy Laravel. Now, let's access our server, and to access the server, we need SSH. Click on this SSH access. We need to enable the SSH. Perfect. I'm gonna set the password, some random password. I think this is not gonna work because it's a no. It is not working. Let's choose a random password. I'm not gonna actually leave this password. I'm gonna change this. So let's use random password. Oh, come on. Random password. Random. Okay, good. Generate one password. Okay, get passwords. We need uppercase and lowercase letters, but anyway, I'm gonna just put a dot at the end or something like this. Okay, it doesn't meet. Okay, let's put a @ symbol. That's fine. Now click on change. Okay, the password was changed. Great. Now we need to access to that server, and this is our password, @ symbol at the end. I don't want to lose that. Okay, great. Now let's open any SSH client using which we will be able to connect to our server so that we can clone the project. So here, one SSH client on Windows is PuTTY, or generally, what I generally prefer is Git Bash. Git Bash has built-in SSH support. Let me zoom in this. And we can use this to connect to the server. For this, I'm going to copy the following command. Click on the copy button, paste this here. So now let's understand this. Using a SSH command with port 65002. This is the user of our hosting account, and this is the IP address. So we are trying to connect. Now it asks us whether we want to continue or not. We're going to type yes, and here we have to provide the password. I'm going to copy this password, paste here with shift and insert and @ symbol at the end. Now we are connected to the server, and we need to go into domains folder, and inside domains folder we have two domains. Let me zoom out slightly. One is API Vue.Laravel.com, where we're going to deploy the API, and this is going to be where we deploy the Vue.js. Now let's go into API Vue.Laravel API.com and have a look. Here we have public HTML. By default, Hostinger creates public HTML folder inside which we are going to have the entry file of our project. So whatever we have in our project inside public folder, this index.php, anything basically that is inside the public folder should be inside this public HTML. Okay, so this is very easy, and I'm going to show you how we can do this. Let me first remove this API Vue Laravel API.com because it has a subfolder right there, and we have to clone the repository and recreate this. So we can actually yeah, we can type this, not a big deal. So let's remove api.vue.laravel.api.com. Great. Now if we try to access API, this is going to show not found, quite probably. Now let's open the Laravel API, click on this code, copy the SSH. If you are cloning a public repository, you can click on the HTTPS and copy this. If you are cloning private repository, you need to copy this SSH, copy this. This shows not found, as I told you. And now we have to execute git clone, paste the repository URL, and then we have to clone this in the same name what was given previously to the folder. So this was the previous name, copy and paste. So we're cloning the repository into the following folder. Great. Hit the enter. We have to type yes. Now this is not going to work, and this is not going to work because we don't have access. So just like I showed you on my phone, basically on the diagram, so Hostinger server does not have access to our private repository, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to give that access to the private repository. For this, let's click on the settings, then click on the deploy keys, click on this add deploy key. Actually, we have to generate new deploy key on the server. So let's click on this deploy keys link right here, which is going to open the documentation. Scroll down below, and we're going to click on this setup deploy keys, run SSH key gen procedure. Click on this, scroll down below, and we have to copy the following command, open our server right here, paste this, and we have to provide our own email address. Let me provide my email address here and click on the enter. So we have to agree on this, enter again, enter again, enter again, and the public private keys were generated. And the public private keys were generated under our home directory SSH folder. So if we now open and read under SSH folder ID ed 25519.pub file, this is the public key. So I'm going to get this public key. Public key is not actually secret. So I'm going to get this public key, and I'm going to go back into my deploy keys and click on this add deploy key. So I'm going to paste my public key right here. I can optionally give it a name like Hostinger shared hosting server, whatever. Okay, I don't want to give it write access, so I'm going to click add key. Now my server contains public private keys, and I put the public key on the server, so my server Hostinger server has access to my private repository because I added public key right here. So now I can clone, I can execute this clone procedure. Look at this and look at this. So it received the object, it cloned the repository. Now if we go into API Vue Laravel API.com and type ls-la, we're going to see all these Laravel files and folders. However, we need public HTML folder right here because this is necessary for Hostinger. We have public folder, so we're going to create symbolic link ln-s. I want to create public. I want to link public into public HTML. Hit on the enter. Then if we type ls-la, we're going to see that there's public HTML which has link into public. Okay, few more steps. Now we're typically setting up the Laravel project. So that was the only step that is relevant for the shared hosting, because shared hosting uses the public HTML. We have to create symbolic link from public into public HTML. Now we have to create env. I'm going to copy env example into .env. Let's execute composer install. So if we execute composer install, this is not going to work because composer uses version 1. So if we type composer -- version, this is give us version 1 point something, but we want composer version 2. Laravel needs composer version 2. For this, we're going to execute composer 2 install. Now this is going to download and install everything that is necessary. It has great internet, so this should be very, very fast. It was already finished. Then we're going to execute php artisan key : generate. So application key set successfully, and php artisan migrate. So the database doesn't exist whether we want to create or not. So right now we are using the SQLite as a choice of the database, but you can actually switch into MySQL. Let's go into Hostinger and type database right here. Click on the management, and from here we can create new database. We can call this whatever we want, and this prefix will be the database name. We can give it our own database, and then when we configure the database in .env file, like, well, let me show you this on our project. So we have all these DB credentials. So you can provide the host will be localhost or 127.0.0.1. The port will be the default 133.06, and the database will be whatever we give right here. The username will be whatever we also give right here, and the password will be whatever we give right here. Okay, just like this, we will be able to create the database, new database. Okay, so we're going to stick with SQLite. So I'm just going to type yes. So the migrations were executed successfully, as we see, and now we should be able to check this in the browser. Refresh it, and look at this. So API was already deployed. We see Laravel version, whatever it is. Okay, cool. Now we have to deploy Vue.js, but we have to deploy this manually first, and then we have to implement the automatic deployment for the API as well as for the Vue.js. To deploy Vue.js, first we have to make sure that we are using the proper website. So API is for API, Vue Laravel API.com is for Vue.js. So make sure we are in the Vue.js. Actually, if you create the MySQL, you should create this inside API Vue Laravel API.com, right? Okay, let's go into here and click on the overview, and then right here in this overview we have this file manager, or you can also find this file manager right here. Click on this, and we're going to access the files on Vue Laravel API.com. If we check Vue Laravel API.com, we see this Hostinger default welcome page, which is not what we want. So if we open this public HTML, this is the default PHP which displays the following content. We don't want this, so we're going to delete that. Now if we refresh the page, this is not going to work anymore. Now let's open our project PHP Storm, and we have to build this, and we have to actually deploy this manually the first time, and then again we're going to implement the automatic deployment. So before we build, make sure we have the correct URL in env file. So we're going to change this, and the URL is this. So this is our API. When we build this for production, this is the location of our API. So now let's bring the terminal. I think this is the front end area. We need to navigate into the front end, and we're going to execute npm run build. We hit the enter. It is going to build. Okay, the build was completed. We have index.html and we have assets, one for CSS and one for JS. Now all of them are inside the dist folder. So let's open dist folder, and we have these three main things what we want to deploy. Now we need to deploy them right here. So first time we're going to do this manually. So we're going to copy and paste, drag and drop right here, and all of them were uploaded. Now if we refresh the page, we are going to see something that doesn't actually work, and I expect this, it should not work, and we are not also redirected into the login page. This returns with 401, that's logical. There's also a course issue. Yeah, nothing actually works, and that's logical. It should not work, but we're going to fix that. Now we're going to open our terminal again. We are inside this API Vue Laravel API.com, and let's open .env file. So besides a couple of things, we have to also change the environmental. Because I'm using Vim, you have to type I on your keyboard to actually go into edit mode. So prod, the environment is prod. We can disable debug, false. The application URL is HTTPS, and this is actually the application URL. Well, let me actually delete everything and paste that. That's the application URL, but we also need front-end URL, like we have right here, this front-end URL. We need that. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this here, and the front-end URL is going to be our Vue.js application URL. So this one is the front-end URL. So here on this server, we're going to paste this front-end URL. Okay, great. So this is the application URL, this is the front-end URL. Now let's scroll down below. What else do we need? We're going to stick with the database to be SQLite, session driver. Yeah, we have to adjust the session domain, and this is going to be, let me copy that domain and paste this here. However, this should be the session domain dot and Vue Laravel API.com. So basically any subdomain will be able to read the information saved under the following domain inside the cookie. Okay, that's the session information. Okay, now I'm going to click on escape, write and quit. That's good. Now the course issue should be gone. If we refresh the page, the course issue is actually gone, and we are redirected into the login page. That's good. That's what we wanted. Now, if I refresh the home page, this is not going to work because we don't have proper redirect. And that redirect should be right here inside the public HTML. We have to create new file, and that file should be ht-access file. Ht-access file is the Apache configuration file from which we can do some level of configuration. And you have to take this out from the repository, or you have to type this, rewrite engine on, and anything. So rewrite condition. Rewrite condition, the URL that is not a file, rewrite condition URL that is not a directory. We have to redirect everything into the index.html because we are using the history mode routing in our Vue.js application, and anything should be handled by index.html. And index.html is the main thing what is visible when we access the page. Now, if I refresh this, index.html handles this login, and Vue.js router starts working, and it displays the correct login page. Okay, so we are almost there, but this is not going to work. And this is not going to work because some of these servers, Apache basically removes some headers. Like if we open the backend public htaccess. We have this htaccess in our Laravel project as well. So here we have a couple of rewrites, and one of them is to keep the authorization header. So we talked about authorization. This is for API token based authentication. But in our application, we don't need authorization header, but we need that XSRF header. Where is that? XSRF, something like this. So this is the header. So this is the header what we want to preserve, what we want Apache to preserve. So without additional configuration right here, it is going to lose our header and the authentication is not going to work. So we can try this. So we can create new account, zura@example.com. We can provide the password and we can click on create account. And we can have a look. So the account was created. Vue.js tried to redirect us to homepage, but the redirect didn't work. And the redirect didn't work because the request didn't have, it had cookie, but it did not pass this it actually passed this SRF token, but the backend didn't receive that token. The token was actually removed by Apache. And by the way, I made a pull request in Laravel core about this, but it got blocked, it got rejected. I will retry to make this inside the Laravel core. So this is what we need. So in the same way we are preserving authorization header, we have to preserve this XSRF token header as well. So that's what you need to add in your project. Now we have to commit this, update htaccess. Generally, I give more descriptive comments, but I don't want to take your time. So we're going to push this. Now we're going to open the Hostinger server and we're going to execute pull, git pull, to get the latest change. And you see htaccess was modified. Now, if we try to go to the login page, it should work. Let's see once again. Okay, it doesn't work, maybe because we don't have the proper session. Anyway, let's try to authenticate. We know that the user was created. Okay, we can try to authenticate right now, zura@example.com. Can provide the password. If I'm not missing anything, that should work. Click on sign in and voila. So we are on the home page and refresh it. We stay on the home page and the authentication happens. And that's cool. We can click on sign out. We have been logged out. If we try to log in again, it is not going to work. If I try to log in right now, then it is going to work. Now, before we try to upload anything, we have to create storage link as well. So for this, we're going to execute PHP artisan storage link. But this is not going to work because this symlink function is actually restricted by Hostinger. And that's pretty easy to enable it. Let's go into our hosting. We have to switch into API because that is the site we want to manage, and click on PHP right here. Click on this PHP configuration. We can switch to the latest version. We have PHP 8.2 right now. Actually, it's not a bad idea. Click on update. It is going to take a few seconds. Cool. And then click on this PHP options. Right here we have all these options, and one of them is disabled functions, and we have the symlink inside disabled functions. We have to remove that symlink and the comma as well. I'm going to click on the save. You can adjust these parameters as well as you want. The option, okay, something, I saw some sort of error. What was that? We have PHP 8.3. Okay, symlink. We have to remove that. Okay, PHP options updated successfully. Great. Now, if we execute PHP artisan storage link, php-v. Okay, it still uses PHP 8.2. Let's actually exit and re-authenticate. We make sure to use the same password. Paste, @ hit the enter. Okay, let's go into domains, API. This is where our API is deployed, and php-v gives us PHP. Well, strange. It still gives us PHP 8.2. Why is that? Okay, I'm not sure. Let's click on this Vue Laravel API and click on these PHP options. Okay, maybe the API is not managed separately, and this is the main one which we're going to manage. Click on this PHP 8.3. Click on update. As soon as my dog hears some noise from outside, she gets mad. Okay, click on PHP options and remove symlink from here. That's the main domain. Probably we should have done on this main domain. Click on save. The option. Okay. Something is. We saw the same error previously. We are on PHP 8.3. Symlink. Click on the save. Okay, PHP options updated successfully. And now let's type php-v. Now we see PHP 8.3, and now let's execute PHP artisan storage link, and the storage link has been connected successfully. Okay, now I think we can try to upload an image right here. Click on upload image, choose this one, click on upload. Okay, here we go. Copy image URL, and this is it. Click on upload again. Choose something else. Click on upload. Here it is. And we can also try one more with giving it a label, some logo. Upload. Here we see a label is displayed as well. Copy image URL, and that's it. So the deployment part is actually done, and that was not actually complicated. And it was pretty straightforward. Now we have to implement the CI/CD so that whenever we push something, the deployment happens automatically. So for this, we have to create additional files inside our project. So in the backend, let's do the backend first. Inside the backend, we are going to create a file under GitHub folder, under workflows, and the file is going to be some sort of YML file, and we can call this hostinger-deploy.yml. So we created the following file, and I'm going to actually copy and paste the actual YML content, which you can get from the following repository. I'm going to make this repository public for you. Just I wanted it to be private during deployment, so you can learn how to deploy private repositories. Okay, so this is the repository, and previously I had that in the repository, but I simply deleted this. And this is it. I want to see a view file. This is it. So let me copy raw file and paste this here. Okay, and we're going to go through this, and we are going to I'm going to quickly explain what is going on here. So this is the name. You can call this whatever you want. There are different events we're going to listen to, and the one event is pushing on the main branch. We can also list different branches. We can also add different event when a new release is made. Okay, I have one of the deployment tutorial made when the release is made. So just if you follow my YouTube tutorial, or if you just check my GitHub repositories, you can find different type of events as well. So then whenever push happens on the main branch, the following jobs will be started. What did I do? the following job will be started, and we have only one build job at the moment, which is going to run on the latest Ubuntu. And these are the steps. So it is going to check out the code on the necessary branch. Then it's going to set up the PHP 8.3. So this is the image using which it is going to set up the PHP. So it is going to create the en file, copy env example into en. It's going to execute the composer dependencies, set the application key, create the storage link, run migrations. Optionally, if your application again uses the tests, you can also uncomment this, and it's going to execute PHP artisan test as well. If the test is failed, if any of the step is failed, next step will not be executed. Okay, so I'm going to comment out this part. We don't need tests. So then if all of them completed successfully, then we're going to deploy this to the server. So we are also checking if success happens. Then we are using the following image using which we're going to connect to the server. This SSH action use image basically gives us possibility to connect to the server. We are going to use the following secrets to connect to our hosting or server. Like host, we need username, we need port, and we also need private key. So if we go back to the screen I shared, basically the private key is necessary on the server so that the server is able to connect to another server. So another server should have the public key, but our server should have private key. I'm going to quickly come back to what we covered so far. So in this case, we added the public key into the repository. So we added public key right here. So this had a private key, and we added the corresponding public key right here. But in this case, we need something else. The runner server needs to connect to our hosting server. So runner server needs to have private key. So that needs private, and this one should have public key. And this is what we are going to do. And we have to do something similar for the Vue.js as well. Okay, so let's assume that all these are available, which we're going to create in a moment. And then when the connection happens, the following scripts should be executed. So we're going to navigate into domains folder, and this is going to be the website folder. The website folder we know is api.vue-laravel-api.com. That's the website folder. We're going to create that variable and those secrets. We're going to check out to main branch. We're going to pull the main branch, execute composer install, execute PHP artisan migrate, config clear, root clear, view clear, and just like this, the application will be deployed. Okay, so git pull actually tries that the hosting server to communicate to the repository, and this is gonna already, we know that it's gonna work because we have actually manually executed git pull, and that actually worked successfully, right? So it is gonna work. Now what we need to do is create those secrets. Now let's go into our repository, click on settings, click on secrets and variables and actions, because GitHub actions is what we are actually doing right now, and the GitHub actions trigger the runner, and the runner server needs to have that. So let's define the repository secrets. We need SSH host, which we can get from the SSH section of our server. This is the host, SSH host. We need SSH username, which is this one. We need SSH port, which is this one, 65002. And we need the private key, which is going to be SSH key. SSH key is something we Either we can use the exact same keys, what we have already generated on the server, or we can create new SSH keys. So again, the choice is to you. For more security, it's better practice to generate new public private keys. Okay, and those public private keys should can be generated on any server. The main thing is that the private goes right here and the public should be added right here in a special place, and that special place is inside authorized keys. Okay, so to generate public private keys, we can, let's click on this deploy keys. We have this instruction right here somewhere. Click on deploy keys, click on this run SSH keygen procedure, and this is how we can generate public private keys. And again, we can generate this right here. You can change the email or you can leave the one. This place is actually already busy. Like it is not busy, but there already exists a public private key right in the following place. So we should not generate them right here in the following area. Instead, you should provide a different location. Okay, which I'm not going to do, but you can do if you want. So I'm going to use the exact same public private keys what we have already generated on this server. So if we go into SSH folder from our home directory, go into SSH, here we have this is the public, this is the private, this is the public. Okay, so we're gonna read private. Okay, this is the private. We're gonna copy that and we're gonna put this right here. But we need its corresponding public key to be in a necessary place of this server, because that runner server, the GitHub runner server, needs to communicate to our hosting server. So here we're going to create new file, vim authorized keys. This is the special name for the SSH communication. So click on this, and then we are going to put right here the public key. Actually, we have to first read the public key. Sorry. So let's read the public key, .pub. This is it. Let's read that. Copy, and now we're going to open vim authorized keys, and we're going to paste this here. Its corresponding public key is on the server right here, so that the runner will communicate to our hosting server. That's perfect. That's great. This is exactly what we wanted. We can navigate already into domains, API key. We don't actually need to do anything right here anymore because runner will do the job. And the last one is to create a variable which we are using right here, website folder variable. And the actual website folder is api.vue-laravel. This is it. This is the folder. Click on add variable. Now we have this ready. We created all these secrets and variables. So we have to commit this, add workflow. We have to push this and we have to observe that. Let's go into actions. Now look at this. So previously that was done 20 hours ago. So I was testing something. Now this is it. So we define the workflow. There's only one job which is running. It is going through all the steps what we have defined. And let's see. Look at this. So this is green. Everything completed successfully. Just to make sure that it worked or not, we have to go to our server and type git log, which will give us all the commit messages. And if our latest commit message, what we just defined, add workflow, is on the server, it means it worked. Git log, look at this, add workflow. So it means that our automatic deployment works successfully. Now, if you add new API endpoint on your server, or if you make some changes, you push that on the main branch, it is going to be automatically deployed on the server. And that is so cool. Now we have to do something similar for the Vue.js. I'm gonna close this as well. So this is frontend. Let's click on settings. Actually, let's first get this YML. It's a slightly different YML file. View file, copy. Okay, now let's create this inside frontend dot github slash workflows slash, you can call this again whatever you want, hostinger deploy is what I'm gonna name it. Click on add, paste this, and we have to now analyze this again. So it's pretty similar, but there are some differences. So again, name, and this is very similar, runs on the latest Ubuntu. It checks out the code. Now it setups Node.js instead of PHP. The version is 22. It installs the dependencies, sets up the project, executes npm run build. If for some reason that fails, it is not going to proceed to the next step. Now, when this happens, we are going to first delete old build files on the server, and that old build files are located. Let's have a look. So inside the following folder, we have public HTML. So if we navigate into public HTML, this is the place where we have all the Vue.js files, and you can always check that from the UI as well. So the previous files are the previous assets folder, index.html, and v.svg or icon, whatever it is. So anything that is not htaccess file in this folder should be deleted. And this is exactly what we are going to do. Again, we are using this SSH action image to connect to the server. In the same way, host, username, port key, we have to define them for this repository as well. And now we're executing the following command, which actually deletes anything that is not htaccess. You don't need to understand every single character right here, but that's actually also pretty straightforward. So find all the files inside the following folder. That variable will be defined. The minimum depth of 1, and that does not have a name htaccess, delete them. Okay, htaccess will stay, everything else will be deleted. When everything else will be deleted, like this one, and this one, htaccess stays there, then we're going to install SSH key inside our action runner. Okay, this is also something new which we haven't done in the backend deployment, but we have to do this because our runner server has to communicate to the hostinger server in a slightly different way. Not like this. It is not only going to execute the command. This is the way how we execute the command on our hostinger server, but now we have to actually also copy the files from the runner into the target hostinger server. Okay, so we're installing the SSH key, we're creating the directory SSH folder, we are putting this SSH private key into ID_RSA inside here, we're changing its mode, we're executing this SSH key scan to actually put that host and port inside the known hosts. Again, no need to know every single thing what's going on here. You can just copy and paste the following YML and it's going to do the deployment. And then finally, using rsync command, we are copying the build files to the target server in the following location. The build files are inside dists. From dist, we're copying that on the server under domains, websites folder, public HTML, which is this directory where I am at the moment. Now let's define the following keys again. So SSH host, port, whatever it is. We're in the front end, click on settings, secrets, actions, new repository secret. Okay, SSH host, which is this. We need username, which is this. We need port, which is 65002, and we need private key. So let's again read the private key that is in our home directory, SSH ID. Let's copy and paste this here. Click on add secret. The corresponding public key of this private key is actually already inside authorized keys of the server. So generally, again, a best practice would be to generate different public private keys for API, different public private keys for frontend, and add both of them inside authorized keys of the server. Right now we have only one key, and that is public key for both, for the API as well as for the frontend. But generally, best practice would be to generate different public private keys, and you should generate this with the command I showed you, sh keygen command. Okay, now we have this private key also added here. We need this variable. That variable is going to be website folder. Cool, and the website folder is, to go back, Vue Laravel API.com. Cool. Click on add variable, and now we need to copy, not the copy, but the commit and push. Add workflow. We committed the front end, and we're pushing the front end right now, which was pushed. Now let's check actions. It has started running. Click on build. Okay, you see that these files were last modified 28 minutes ago. Now let's wait until this finishes and we refresh it, and it will be modified a few seconds ago. Okay. Something did not work. It failed. Okay.
2 hours later.
So here I made a terrible mistake, and when I copied the following domain, I copied this with a white space in front of it. And whenever this with a white space in front of it was used inside the YML, the deploy actions deploy script right here, so it got actually replaced with white space here. So it actually started working on the following two directories, like this one and this one, and it actually deleted everything inside domains, including the API project itself. And then I thought I would fix that, not fix that, but I tried a different approach basically, and I, instead of this finding, I did the following. So I basically typed cd here to navigate into the following folder, and then after we navigated inside the folder, then from the current folder I wanted to find everything that was not htaccess and delete this, and guess what happened? So again, this was replaced with space and view, whatever, it doesn't matter in this case. The main thing is that it navigated into this, but because we had a space right here, it didn't navigate into domains. Because we had a space right here, cd command doesn't support multiple arguments, so it did not navigate anywhere. It stayed into the home directory, and then it executed the following script, and it deleted everything from my home directory. I wasn't even able to execute composer install because of that stupid space mistake. I really wanted to share this to you. I know this project is not about sharing my stupid things, but yeah, this is what happened. Then I completely forgot about that shared hosting, because from the UI I couldn't find how to entirely reset the shared hosting. So I chose a different shared hosting server and did everything right there, installed the entire project there. And now we have this. So the code is actually the same. Just make sure that you don't have any extra white spaces in front of it or after that. And this is it. So actually, if I refresh it, I don't have any white space right here. I'm actually afraid right now to hit update this. So finally, what we have, the last build actually completed successfully. Right here 2 minutes ago we have this htaccess, and we can even retry right now one more build, and we're going to see that the files will be updated. If I refresh this, now this is 9 minutes ago, we come right here, rerun all jobs, click on rerun. It is going to do the rerun, and it's going to delete everything except htaccess. htaccess was created 7 minutes ago. It's going to stay there, and the other files will be simply replaced. We just need to have a look at this. As soon as this is finished, we're going to see this is yeah, it started working. It was a caching issue, and so let's see, the deployment was finished. We can refresh this. We can see that this is 8 minutes ago, and these are right now. The only issue is that the API request is not properly taken inside our Vue.js application because we didn't provide that the following environment variable, which is Vite API base URL, and we have to provide this from here, or we can even put this as a variable. So before we execute run right here after set up the project, let's provide env, and we can provide Vite API base URL, and let's take this also from secrets, and that will be secrets Vite API base URL. I'm not missing anything. So then during npm run build, this will be taken and used. So let's go into frontend settings. It is not actually a secret, it is a variable, so we can put this inside variables. This that will be API Laravel or vue-laravel-api.com. Actually, we need this with HTTPS. That's it. Okay, make sure we don't have any white space. So we add this variable, then come into the code, and instead of secrets, we take this from variables. Okay, and let's again call this update workflow. Not ideal comment. I don't like on production applications giving such type of comments, but I want to save your time. Okay, now we're gonna see when this finishes. If we refresh this, we're gonna see that this is updated 5 minutes ago. It will be replaced. This job actually needs less than a minute. Okay, it got completed. Refresh it. We see a few seconds ago. Let's clear cache and hard reload. And yeah, these errors are because after reinstall the entire API, I haven't configured the .env with the things what I did previously. I'm going to do this right now. Okay, as soon as I fix the env file, then everything's working. We have I just uploaded images, logout, login, everything's there, everything's working. And I actually spent last more than 2 hours to fix that problem and recover the stage where I was actually previously. If you want to deploy more than 2 websites on your shared hosting, you can obviously click on this add website and go in the same process, create website, click on next, empty PHP HTML website, click on next, and just like this, you can go ahead and assign a subdomain to it, and then you need to clone the project and set it up, and you can have as many projects as you want, which is pretty awesome and very, very convenient. All right, that's it, my friends. I hope this helped, and I hope you learned something new. I hope you watched this till the end, and if so, please hit the like button and subscribe for more projects like this, and let me know also your thoughts about this project in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next time.